Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere.
A judge ruling a group of 16 people accused of trying to falsely certify President Trump as the winner of the 2020 election will not face trial.
There was absolutely nothing proven in any way that we were at fault of any of the things that we were charged with, horrible things that we were charged with. I was looking at 84 years in prison.
And we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit the like button, my people. You know that helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all, you know, we've been keeping up with your girl, Fani Willis, since last year with the YSL trial, y'all. I mean, she's gone off and lost that case, and now she's going on to lose other cases as well. And just today, a judicial decision in a whole nother state in Michigan portends was bad for Fani. Now you might say, I don't know a whole lot about Fani, but I know she's in Georgia. How can a Michigan judicial decision be bad for Fani? Well, you're gonna learn that today in today's video, y'all. Today you are gonna learn. So make sure you watch until the end so that you can be fully informed, okay? This is gonna be edutainment, educational and entertaining. So first we have to set the groundwork, y'all. You know that Fani has a RICO trial, a RICO case that she put on Donald Trump.
Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21. Specifically, the participants in association took various actions in Georgia and elsewhere to block the counting of the votes of the presidential electors, who were certified as the winners of Georgia's 2020 general election. As you examine the indictment, you will see acts that are identified as overt acts and those that are identified as predicate acts, sometimes called acts of racketeering activity.
Now, part of that case is this. Part of the case is the allegation that Donald Trump conspired with people who would act as if they were electors for the state of Georgia to cast their votes for Donald Trump to win the state of Georgia in the 2020 election.
Several supporters of former President Donald Trump in Georgia are facing possible felony charges and years in prison if they are indicted with Trump and then convicted of conspiring to make Trump the winner in Georgia in 2020, despite Trump's loss here to Biden. The Georgia GOP launching a new website praising the potential Georgia defendants, calling them patriots, and asking for donations for a defense fund for them.
It's not surprising at all. I mean, they've taken lessons from the master. It's figuring out ways to monetize this to their advantage.
Former U.S. Attorney Michael Moore, now in private practice as a partner with Moore Hall in Atlanta and not part of the case, points out that among the targets of the grand jury investigation are the 16 Republicans who met at the state capitol on December 14th, 2020. They were ready to claim that they, and not the Democrats, should represent Georgia in the Electoral College vote in Congress the following January 6th. Leading that meeting, David Schaefer, who was then the state GOP chair.
If they are indicted by the grand jury, I think that they could be part of a larger RICO case about whether or not there was a broad effort to overthrow the election, and were they part of that. Fake electors are being prosecuted and investigated in other states, and so I think that would sort of follow suit here.
Although 8 of the 16 so-called alternate electors in Georgia may have already accepted immunity in exchange for their testimony.
Rather than risk spending some time in a state hotel wearing an orange bathrobe, that they're going to rather cooperate and talk about what really happened that day.
So as many of you probably know, and if you don't know, now you know, in order to win a presidential election, you have to get the majority, over 50% of the electoral college votes, okay? You've all heard that from grade school. Well, in Georgia, because Georgia declared Joe Biden the winner, his electors were gonna go and cast their vote for him. But if you remember, Donald Trump disputed Biden's win. So Trump, he had his own electors on the side and said, look, y'all be ready, because we're gonna be doing some recounts, we're gonna be doing some things, and I want y'all to be ready because I think I really won Georgia. Now there are some other details to it, but that's the basic overview. These people who served as Donald Trump's alternate electors, that whole alternate elector thing is a key part of Fani Willis's RICO as a pattern of illegal activity. And just today in Michigan, a case against the alternate electors for Donald Trump in Michigan failed, and that whole case was thrown out.
A judge ruling a group of 16 people accused of trying to falsely certify President Trump as the winner of the 2020 election will not face trial. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Glenda Lewis.
And I'm Simon Shaquette. Judge Kristen D. Simmons finding no intent to commit fraud in their actions after several years of back and forth.
The 15 defendants, including a few high-profile members of the Michigan Republican Party, were each charged 2 years ago with 8 counts of forgery and conspiracy to commit election fraud.
7 News Detroit reporter Whitney Burney joining us in studio live with reaction from both sides and what lies ahead. Whitney.
Well, Simon and Glenn, today's ruling a major blow to Michigan's Attorney General Dana Nessel and other prosecutors as similar cases in 4 other states have been hit with similar setbacks. While Nessel believes the evidence here was clear, those accused are celebrating a victory on what they say was retaliation.
The evidence was clear. They lied, they knew they lied, and they tried to steal the votes of millions of Michiganders.
Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel says this all started in December of 2020 when 16 people walked into a room with a mission to sign and mail a document to the U.S. Senate falsely claiming to be duly elected and qualified electors for the state of Michigan and that Donald Trump was the rightful winner of the presidential election.
We are talking about 16 people who conspired to nullify the votes of the other 2,649,851 voters who happened to disagree with them.
After 2.5 years of litigation, Judge Kristen D. Simmons declaring Tuesday morning the accused men and women would not face charges in the case, finding no intent to commit fraud.
There was no criminal intent. There was absolutely nothing proven in any way that we were at fault of any of the things that we were charged with, horrible things that we were charged with. I was looking at 84 years in prison, and it's taken us 2.5 years to fight this.
Michonne Maddock, one of the 16 defendants in this case.
What do you want people to know about what you guys were attempting to do during that time when it came to the election?
You know, it's really easy, and Judge Simmons brought it up. We went Facebook Live and said that we were never meant to replace the electors that were in the Capitol, that what we were doing was signing a document to go alongside in case it was needed. And if the election in 2020 had been revealed to have been stolen, like I know that it was, then the paperwork that we did would have been necessary.
Maddox says she believes she and the other electors were only targeted because of their loyalty to President Trump, and still believes to this day the election was stolen despite no evidence of widespread fraud ever being uncovered.
As prosecutors, we have a moral and ethical obligation to bring charges when there is evidence of a crime. And despite today's very wrong decision, the evidence is clear and overwhelming.
So a key part of Fani's RICO is to convince a judge and a jury that Trump and his co-defendants illegally represented themselves as electors in the 2020 election. But the Michigan decision now casts doubt on whether that contention would hold up in Georgia. Now, before you say, hey, hold up, Michigan and Georgia, those are 2 different states. They might have 2 different actual statutes or laws. Yes, that's all true. So what we're doing is we're using this Michigan case as a window into the future as to how a Georgia judge might rule. But we are certainly not saying that because the Michigan judge threw it out, the Georgia judge would definitely throw the case out as well. But you better believe if this case ever does get that far, Donald Trump's lawyers are going to point to that Michigan case and say, look, this has already been thrown out in another state. And they will want to take that legal reasoning as far as they can take it for the Georgia case, if it even goes forward. Because as of now, y'all, Fani's disqualified for doing chooky with her special prosecutor, Nathan Wade. But this whole election thing is still having ramifications in Fulton County. The Democrats on the Fulton County government, called the County Commission, they are refusing to seat Republicans to the County Commission, and they're using the excuse or the reason, that the Republicans are election deniers. So a judge actually ordered them to seat these two Republicans, and they said no.
Tonight, Fulton County's Board of Commissioners has once again declined to name two Republicans to the county's election board. This after a judge ruled they had to do it, a ruling now in an appellate court. 11 Alive's Doug Pritchards reports on what they did and didn't do today.
My vote will remain a no on election deniers.
The Democratic majority on the Fulton County Commission persisted in its refusal to name two Republicans to the County Board of Elections. Republican Julie Adams is already on the board seeking renomination. A former election board chair said she had been a disruptive presence.
We have the experience of understanding she costs taxpayers money. She is disruptive to the organization.
Republicans also wanted to name Jason Frazier to the board, also described by his detractors as a 2020 election denier. Republicans reminded Democrats a judge had ordered the board to ratify the two Republicans.
We're not going to listen to the judge. We're not going to listen to his order because we don't like it. Isn't that what they accuse the Republicans of doing? Isn't that what they accuse Trump of doing?
A nomination is a recommendation. It is a suggestion.
Marvin Arrington Jr. also wanted to block the Republican nominations. Democrats in the legislature wrote a letter urging the Fulton County Board not to give in, but Republicans backed by the National Party are expecting to keep up the court fight.
If anything, this fight to keep Jason and Julie off the board has only strengthened the fight of the Republican Party.
Yet on a party line vote, the Democratic majority prevailed.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
Chairman Pitts told board members that he expects Republicans in the legislature next year to introduce legislation that would strip Fulton and perhaps other counties from their ability to appoint a majority of members to their county election boards. At the Fulton County Government Center, Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
And so at this point, they are in defiance of a judge's order. This Michigan ruling is another blow for Fani. Not because Fani's in Michigan, but because the legal reasoning here will undoubtedly be used in the Trump case to bolster his case, regardless if the exact legal conditions that exist in Michigan exist in Georgia. That's not the point. If this case had been found with merit in Michigan, it would have been good for Fani, but maybe not for Fani because she's off the case, but you know what I mean. Now that this case is found without merit in Michigan, it bolsters Trump's defense and it hurts Fani. You see what I mean? Y'all, let me know what y'all think about this. I mean, the case is already kind of collapsed. I mean, Fani has been disqualified. She's appealing that. And now this key part of the case has been undermined with this ruling from a judge in another state. Again, it doesn't carry over to Georgia, but it does give the defendants some legal ground to stand on and a legal path forward. Let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, y'all. But before you do, please stop, hit the share button, share this video out over email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all of your favorite social mediums. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. To my people with the retirement, y'all hit the link, the first link down in the description, Paralegold, PARALEGOLD.com. Gold is at an all-time high. It looks like it wants to go higher. I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But I know months ago I told y'all to look into gold and you would have made a ton of money if you had. Talk to our partners at Augusta Precious Metals at 844-651-8334. They'll hook you up. Thank y'all for watching. Love y'all, and we'll see you back in the next one.
Thank you for joining us. I'm here with the prosecutors and investigators who have worked diligently on the investigation of criminal attempts to interfere in the administration of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. Today, based on information developed by that investigation, a Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state. The indictment includes 41 felony counts and is 97 pages long. Please remember that everyone charged in this bill of indictment is presumed innocent. Specifically, the indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani, John Charles Eastman, Mark Randall Meadows, John Cheeseborough, Jeffrey Clark, Jenna Lynn Ellis, Ray Stallings Smith III, Robert David Cheeley, Michael A. Roman, David James Schaefer, Sean Micah Tresher Steele, Stephen Cliffgard Lee, Harrison William Prescott Floyd, Travion C. Cootie, Sydney Catherine Powell, Kathleen Austin Latham, Scott Graham Hall, and Misty Hampton, also known as Emily Misty Hayes. Every individual charged in the indictment is charged with one count of violating Georgia's Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act through participation in a criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere to accomplish the illegal goal of allowing Donald J. Trump to seize the presidential term of office beginning on January 20th, 21. Specifically, the participants in association took various actions in Georgia and elsewhere to block the counting of the votes of the presidential electors, who were certified as the winners of Georgia's 2020 general election. As you examine the indictment, you will see acts that are identified as overt acts and those that are identified as predicate acts, sometimes called acts of racketeering activity. Overt acts are not necessarily crimes under Georgia law in isolation, but are alleged to be acts taken in furtherance of the conspiracy. Many occurred in Georgia, and some occurred in other jurisdictions and are included because the grand jury believes they were part of the illegal effort to overturn the results of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. The acts identified as predicate acts or acts of racketeering activity are crimes that are alleged to have been committed in furtherance of the criminal enterprise. Acts of racketeering activity are also charged as separate counts in the indictment against those who are alleged to have committed them. All elections in our nation are administered by the states, which are given the responsibility of ensuring a fair process and an accurate counting of the votes. That includes elections for presidential electors, Congress, state officials, and local offices. The state's role in this process is essential to the functioning of our democracy. Georgia, like every state, has laws that allow those who believe that results of an election are wrong, whether because of intentional wrongdoing or unintentional error to challenge those results in our state courts. The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result. Subsequent to the indictment, as is the normal process in Georgia law, the grand jury issued arrest warrants for those who are charged. I am giving the defendants the opportunity to voluntarily surrender no later than noon on Friday, the 25th day of August, 2023. I remind everyone here that an indictment is only a series of allegations based on a grand jury's determination of probable cause to support the charges. It is now the duty of my office to prove these charges in the indictment beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. I would like to take a moment to thank the Superior Court Clerk, Shay Alexander, and her staff for staying late and making sure that this indictment was processed. I would also like to thank the men and women of Sheriff Labatt's office for keeping the courthouse open, but most importantly for keeping us safe over the weeks and months that have led up to this indictment, and for what I know they will continue to do to keep us safe.